I am a bit further out, closer to the city, and so hoping the interwebs will treat us a little bit better. Although I do need to make sure I act well. Um, let's talk competition because that's where I was trying to get into. Hey, there you go. Is it actually working now? I am Steve. Exactly. That's really what's going on right now. Um, so I wanted to talk about competition and then throw it over to you guys. You guys can throw in whatever questions you have. Hey, T-Rod. Yeah, I'm trying something different because I'm on tour. We're just in like packed in sardines, right? When we're at the venue. So I just figured I might as well show you guys some beautiful outdoors and uh and go from there. So um let's imagine you're going like, okay, I got to really bring my A game, right? Because as a musician, I'm only as good as my product, and my value is really going to come from how good I am at the music thing, right? So you're playing away, you're going nuts, you're trying to be as good a musician as possible. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of value in there. Oh, Adam, I did not. I did not. Yeah, it actually just stopped raining. It's actually gorgeous here. I did not, Adam. I have to apologize. I will try to make that. My flight leaves fairly middle of the day tomorrow. So I'm going to try to get that done either tonight or tomorrow after the gig before the flight. We'll get there. Um, so back to competition. You're trying your hardest, you're pushing your hardest. Why am I talking about that? I'm talking about that because I'm outside right now and I'm walking instead of practicing or doing the hustle thing, right? Here's the deal about the arts. Is it important to be good at your instrument? The answer is yes. Is it important to be educated about music? The answer is yes, to an extent. If you're aware of Malcolm Gladwell and like the tipping point stuff, that's a really good framework to think about. So if you're not, let me explain it to you real quick. His whole theory is it's only important to have a certain skill to a certain threshold. And then after that, you're probably better off going and developing other skills. So, like, for example, if you look at IQ, once you get above 120, sometimes I look like Mark Zuckerberg. Hey, it happens to the best of us. Once you get above 120 IQ, the amount that that helps you be more successful in life drops off dramatically. And his theory is that's because after 120 IQ, that's about the threshold to do a master's degree. Mark obviously doing his usual job. Yeah, of course. Just it is Mark in the wilderness talking about music, competition, and Malcolm Gladwell right now. So you have this tipping point of your IQ. When you get over that, other things start to matter, like how nice of a person you are, what your emotional IQ is, how good you relate to other people, et cetera, et cetera. Hey, Shiwan, love back from the United States to Pakistan. That's awesome. So, what does this have to do with music and competition? You need to get competent at your instrument. You need to understand theory, but then other things start to really matter. So, hold on. Love from India, awesome. Love back from the US of A. Wow, that sunshine's peeking. That is gorgeous. Whew, absolutely beautiful out here. Did it die again? Explain why people choose terrorism as their national occupation. Um, I mean, I can do that in abstract sense. I'm not going to touch specific things. Um, I mean, well, okay, I'm not gonna do it. I'm going to explain the general overarching theories. I'm not even gonna say if I believe in these theories, but this is kind of a tangent from music and competition and Malcolm Gladwell. But hey, you're asking a question. I said ask questions. So if you think about terrorism, what are you trying to do with terrorism? What is terrorism? It's random acts of violence to make people afraid. What does making people afraid do? It enacts change. And so if you're trying to enact change, I could see how someone would be pushed to conduct things of terrorism. Now, you go, but wait a second, you got a moral code. You want to not trip over that moral code. And I think you get there one of two ways. You either get in the ends justify the means, or you get, you are in thin ice. Hey, we're talking philosophically here. We can have a philosophical code. If you really look at what happens in the world, I would say you actually end up being more close to being able to justify a violent act if you think that it's for a cause. And so that's really what you end up with. Now, again, I'm not going to get more in details because I think it's hyper complicated, super hyper complicated. That's why education is important. Now, you got to be careful with that because I agree with you, but I think it's kind of overrated. I think in the West, we think that education will solve everything. But the truth is, education just makes you smarter at propaganda. And so you kind of end up being in a tricky place where you can really go all sorts of directions. But that's for another day. We're talking about music and competition and Malcolm Gladwell. So let's say you're a musician and you're practicing and you're getting good at your instrument, and you go, I know what I need to do. I need to practice more. But here's the problem. Here is the problem with that. The problem with that is if you practice more and more and more, you may be limiting yourself to other experiences, other things that are important that are going to drive you to being more successful and having actually a better musical existence. So, for example, if I practiced instead of experiencing this nature, like I know how to play the piano, but when I experience this nature, it's going to fill me up, fill my emotional essence up. And so I'm going to be even more capable of expressing what musical ideas I want to express. And so I think, Liszt had this really great framework for this. He really thought that people who wanted to do music should really spend a lot of their time in nature and a lot of time out in the elements and exploring because that gives you things to say with your music. Oh, thank you, Shiwan. It's weird, but many artists get a free when it comes to character building. Sometimes the weirder the better to propel to become successful. Now, you're hitting on a really interesting point, She-Rock, because I think, and again, this is probably just as problematic as the terrorism talk. I think there's an extent where that's powerful and helpful. And then I think it's an extent where society likes to, um, society likes to uh, be entertained. And so we actually celebrate the downfall of artists for our own personal entertainment. And that is a huge problem, just very, very problematic. I think you can look at it with like Justin Bieber. I think you can see it with Britney Spears. I think people just enjoy that downfall story. Uh, Get a pass. Yes, when it comes to character building. No, I agree. I agree. That actually makes even more sense. That's what I'm saying. Like when I'm saying building things and becoming an artist and all of that, that doesn't mean inherently destructive. Like I think again, thinking of potentially Western ideas, maybe they're global ideas. I think we think of character building in a weird way in modern times. Like when I was a kid, which I guess was still modern, but back in the 90s, character building was doing hard things that you knew were good for you and knew made you a better person, even though you didn't like them. I think character building in many ways these days is doing destructive things for the sake of destruction because you think you might learn some experience from them, which is really odd if you think about it. Like touching a stove doesn't make you a smarter person. Now, if you didn't know stoves were hot, then touching a stove is a good thing for the most part because you're going to experience that and you go, oh crap, that hurt. I don't like that. And you're going to be done. Um, we need good ethics along with education. We need to go the way of spirituality to get that. I am more in your camp. Spirituality is overrated, in my opinion. Depends on which spirituality you're talking about. If you're talking about abstract spirituality with no foundational objective ethics, then I agree with you. I think it is way overrated in modern times. If you're talking about spirituality, this understanding that there's more to physics and it's metaphysic, um, yeah, exactly. Metaphysical in nature. I think that that's actually just wisdom, right? Because, like, if you just think about the world, which is more likely that we understand everything and know all of how the world works, or that we actually don't understand everything and there's things outside of our own understanding? I think that is just a bit of, um, that is just a bit of, you know, humility, really. Um, What's your opinion about religions? We can get into that in a second. Let me finish up my music thought just real quick here, and then we can get into that. And I love to maybe venture back into music, but who knows? Let me make going. It doesn't immediately get rid of everything for you. Wow, there was either okay. It's just a big bird. There was a big old thing up ahead. Just making sure I wasn't being stalked or anything by an animal. Again, even though it's near a city, you never be too careful. So music. I'm talking about taking a break. I'm talking about exploring things outside of music. I'm talking about making sure that you're a balanced human being. This is extremely important because what happens if you don't is you end up being this technician or this extreme auteur that is very, very sophisticated in your musical capabilities, but ends up being quite shallow in your ability to affect change and affect outcomes outside of that ability. So that's where I would leave it there, Mark. Um, so that's really where I would sort of tie up in a nice bow that music piece. Is just make sure that you're not really limiting yourself by focusing so hard on the musical piece that you neglect other parts of your nature. Um, it's important with all fields, but I think it's heavily important when it comes to music. Heavily, heavily, heavily. Uh, in terms of religion, I think you could think in modern times of religion b- probably primarily being underrated. And the reason why I say it's underrated is everyone is looking for meaning and belonging, and there is kind of this ability, which I'm not really a, who was the guy? Oh, Pascal. I'm not really Pascalian. I think you have to have a little more conviction than Pascal, but if you're familiar at all with Pascal's wager, he's basically was this crazy dude way back when, and he was like, "Okay, so you're telling me I got 2 options. I can believe that God exists and that there's metaphysics, and if I'm right, then I get all of this reward and all of this meaning and all of this help on how to structure my life in a good, beneficial way to the world. And if I'm wrong, I lived my life in a delusion, but a happy, pleasant delusion where I actually was a better person because of it." And then you look at the other idea, which would be atheism, that God does not exist and that all I can do is see with my own eyes and that's all that there is. If I'm right, I have a slightly more grounded reality. I'm able to achieve a little bit more in the physical here and now because I'm not distracted by anything beyond. But if I'm wrong, I am deeply, deeply screwed. Like, I messed up big, big time compared to any other mess up. That is the biggest mess up, right? Because I missed the whole reason, the point of life. And it actually mattered because there was some form of metaphysics. So I don't want to be one of those guys to beat around the bush. I am a Christian. I think religion is actually deeply important. But at the same time, I think everybody needs to come to that place on their own. And it doesn't really help for religious people to be beating around, people over the head with it, especially not with any form of violence or intense persuasion, because it kind of defeats the purpose. So, anyway, probably far more than you wanted to hear from a dude whose channel is about music. But my 2 cents, you asked. So let's get back into music for a little bit. Uh, so I am playing a show out here in Long Island, and I am touring. So what that really entails is you're traveling to all these different places in the world, and you're playing music for different people. Now, the first thing that I want to bring up, because I think for a lot of people, I think you're going to think that that is out of any possibility that you could ever do. And the truth is, it's actually not that complicated. It's hard, but it's not that complicated. It basically involves making a small enough niche audience in little communities around whatever area you're in, whatever market you're in, if you will, and then tying together dates so that you can actually justify the travel. So a lot of times what you'll do is you'll have an anchor date, and that anchor date will be you're playing, a big city, you're playing a casino, you're playing, a retirement community, someplace that has built-in money. And they will write you a check that's good enough to pay for your band to travel there and stay there and hopefully make a little money. Once you have that, you can quite easily gather around a tour around there. I think that that's the best case scenario and makes traveling and touring quite easy, if you will. It's also very challenging to get that because they're going to be offering you a guarantee. Now, with guaranteed money, guess what? That means they're taking on all the risk. Why would they take all the risk? Because they're hoping to have all the upside. Why would they want to have all the upside? I look like Mark Zuckerberg? First person ever to tell that to me. Incredible. Wow. Um, why would you want to have all the upside as the venue, but also have all the risk? It's because you think that you're going to be able to make a lot of money off of a band. So you really need to be in a situation where you can command some degree of interest. And that might not be you. So what would be some alternatives? Let's say you're more of an upcoming artist, maybe you're an indie artist. Well, then you may need to do something more modest. So there's a couple strategies for that. Still playing to play with two hands. That's a good place to start. Hey, there's no shame in being where you're at. That's actually knowing where you're at, know thyself is beginning to become, I think, one of my most favorite sayings because I just think it's so valuable to really get a good understanding of what you're actually trying to accomplish in life. So let's say you're trying to get that extra presence. Maybe you already can play a couple shows in your own town and you want to get out a little bit further. Or maybe we should back up. If we're talking like, you know, you're just starting out, how do you get even a show anywhere, right? There's the really built-in method. Hold on 2 seconds. Don't get me wrong, but you can read Bhagavad Gita, the speech from God, of Sanatan religion. There you can get all the answers of life. Scientists like Heisenberg and others were also inspired by that. I think reading religious texts, even if you're not religious, is super, super smart, super fundamentally smart. I think reading the Bible, reading Bhagavad Gita, reading the Quran, reading the Torah, like you cannot deny the level of wisdom that exists in these books. So anyway, sorry, getting sidetracked again. Um, if we are talking about, and hold on, now let me make sure that I'm actually check my directions. It probably kills the stream for a second. So sorry about that, but getting lost kind of stinks. Last like a day ago, was that a day ago? No, 2 days ago. I was in the wilderness. I totally got lost. But with phones, lost is not that exciting these days. It's just a little frustrating. It's not like, heart pumping, like, oh crap, sort of thing. So let's say you're at T-Rog's level, you're starting to get some playing down, and maybe you want some experiences to play out. Let's actually talk through that. And maybe I should make a whole video on this because honestly, I don't think people really cover this too much. And it's not really secret information, but if you don't know, you don't know. So how would you're like, okay, I know a few songs. I kind of know how to learn songs. I sound okay. I don't sound amazing, but I sound okay. How am I supposed to get better unless I get more experience? And the answer is that's going to be really, really challenging to get better without more experience. So, how do you get that experience? Well, what you're going to do is you're going to play some gigs. How do you play some gigs? Well, there's a few built in opportunities that present themselves. To tie in to the religion piece, your local house of worship is probably actually your easiest way to get a gig. Almost every single church, synagogue, religious temple, organization, they are going to want musicians. And so, if you are able to express even the most modest ability to play and enthusiasm, guess what? You got a gig. You're going to get a gig. And if they're not interested in you, go one door over to the next church, temple, synagogue, what have you. They're going to want you. Even if you don't quite agree with them, guess what? You got a gig. Hopefully, it's a different time than what you were doing, or you don't even go to church. Go and ask if they want a musician. I know a lot of people who don't actually attend a church for religious purposes, but they actually play for churches because it's a pretty solid gig. So that would be option number one. I think that that's a really fantastic opportunity. It's an amazing place to get some skills, to grow your abilities. Um, let's say you don't want to go that route though. That's where you need to get a little creative, but not entirely so. If you want to get to this that next level of they'll take anybody because you just are not confident about yourself or maybe you're not very good yet, then you want to pursue charitable causes and you also want to pursue open mics and open opportunities. So a lot of towns have clubs that have open mic opportunities. So you're going to just show up, you're going to sign up, and it's kind of nerve wracking. There's a bunch of people set up and they're going to want to play. And what you're going to do is you're going to sign your name up. You're going to go up. Make sure you scout it out ahead of time. A lot of times it helps to go there first with no intention of playing, just so you kind of get the vibe of what's going on. No, do I need to bring any equipment? Do I have to befriend someone to get on the list? What level is everyone playing at? But try not to get too many of those details in your head because otherwise you'll never actually do it. And once you got that rolling in your head, you go, okay, all right, I'm going to play this open mic. So you sign up, you do your thing, and chances are you're going to meet a bunch of people while you're there. Guess what? Those people are typically musicians around your skill level. So what are they going to want to do? They're going to want to be supportive because they're hoping you're going to be supportive back. That support can grow. You can grow all together. You can really start develop a community that way. It's really, really powerful stuff. So I think that that's a really good place. So we got religious organizations, we got open mics. Let's talk about charitable stuff, charitable work. Almost always, hospitals and retirement homes are looking for entertainment. They are looking for someone to utterly lost. What you can do is you can go, hey, you've got a piano here, or you've got a stage here, whatever. You got an outlet here. Can I show up and can I play music here for your residents? 9 times out of 10, they're just going to go, sure. How long do you want to play? Because you're providing entertainment. And you have to understand people who are in retirement homes, people who are in the hospital, they want anything. And so if you're giving them free entertainment, they're going to be thrilled to death and be extremely receptive, even if you do a mediocre job. So that gets you religious organizations, open mics, and then charitable organizations. Now, let's say you want to really start getting your feet wet. Maybe you're starting to feel your own swagger a little bit. You're like, I've got an hour worth of music. Maybe you got a little band together. Well, what's the next step after that? Well, the next step is going to be doing uh, some form of hotel or restaurant work. So, what's the hotel restaurant scene look like? This is going to blow your mind. Literally, All you have to do, you go to a downtown area, you walk in every single restaurant, and you go, hey, I just fib a little bit, right? Because you haven't really played gigs. Go, I'm a well known musician. I really know what I'm doing. I can get people in your restaurant, I can keep them there. I can play all the top hits. It's going to be amazing. I do requests. It's going to be incredible. Again, you don't want to go super over the top. Like maybe you don't do requests, so maybe you don't say that. But you can giving you the permission. All musicians do it. Fib a little bit, right? And you set that expectation, and then what happens? They're gonna oh, and you don't set a price. You just say, hey, do you mind if I just play and we just see what happens? Do you get more people in? Do they stay longer? Do they buy more drinks? Et cetera, et cetera. If you do that to 10 restaurants, I bet one of them says yes. If you do that to 20, 3 or 4 may say yes. And you only need a couple to say yes, and you've got a gig. And if you do a good job, guess what? You got a residency, which is when you play the same place over and over again, and they expect you to come at a certain time each week. So we've got religious groups playing for them. Then we've got oh, now I'm forgetting stuff. So we got religious groups, then we have open mics, then we have charitable organizations. You could do jams, right, in the open mic slot. Jazz jams or jams in general is part of that too. Then we got charitable organizations like hospitals, retirement homes. Then we've got hotels, restaurants, right? So now you're ready for the big daddy of the gigging world, which is the club scene. This is what you do for the club scene. The way you get your first gig is you don't actually get your first gig at all. The way you get your first gig is you're going to be tied in enough with people that a band goes, hey, you mind? Oh, you absolutely can add family and friends gatherings as well. That's a fantastic idea. The only reason I didn't mention family and friends gatherings is one, I didn't think of it, and two, I not everybody has that access. I think pretty much everything I've listed anybody could do, but some people have a great family and friends network, some people don't. So if you've got that, absolutely. Let me finish this up and then I probably will need to let you guys go so I can actually find my way out of this wilderness. But uh here's the final boss, if you will, of the local gigging world. And that is but no, that's a great idea. Fantastic idea, Chirag. Um ooh, I want to answer that Mozart Toven. There's a turkey. Okay, there's a turkey. All right. If you didn't think I was just in the wilderness, now you know I'm just in the wilderness. Again, I don't know if it cuts to black every time I do that, but I'm trying not to get lost. So let me finish this up real quick. I'm going to finish up the gig world, and then I want to finish up this classical composer in modern day society question because I think that's an awesome question. So you're at the final boss, which is bars and clubs and coffee shops and real local gigs, right? It does cut to black, so I apologize. Let me finish this and then I'll let you guys go so I can actually find my way out and have more access to my map. But this was a fun experiment. This was entertaining. I enjoyed this. I hope you did too. So let's imagine you want to get your bar gig. I was saying most of the time you don't get your bar gig gets you. That's really what happens. And what do I mean by that? I mean that you go and go, hey, I've played at my church. I've played at a hospital, a hotel. I played at an open mic. Now you've built a series of musicians that know you and know that you can play well. And they go, hey, you want to join my band and play this bar? And you go, sure. Or you go, you want to open for me? Could you put a band together to open for me? Sure. That's how you get it. Now, there is a small chance that you don't ever get to that step. I think that chance is like 5% or 2% or maybe even zero if you're actually being active in your musical community. Because the honest truth is, Clubs and bars do not pay well, and they're always looking for people to play. So they're going to generally, and it's typically a grueling amount of time, like 4 hours they're trying to fill. So they're trying to find somebody to do that opening, less prestigious, when only a few people are in the bar type time slot. So what do? If you don't have that, you go to clubs and you go, hey, I can bring in 10 people. Could you let me open? And you may go, what in the world? 10 people is all it takes? Yes, yes. If you could bring in 10 ticket paying customers, then they're going to say yes. Now, can you actually bring in 10? You may not actually bring in 10, but you have to have that confidence to just say, yeah, I can bring in 10 people, no problem. And that is going to get you in the door. So, to summarize, you've got all of these different avenues to start getting your experience. Why am I talking about this? Well, Chirag was mentioning getting his hands working together. I would encourage people as soon as they can, if they want to become a performing musician, if they want music to be a big part of their life, try to get out in the real world as soon as you can without completely embarrassing yourself. And if you have a good bit of personal introspection, you know where that point is. It's possible you don't have a very good barometer for that. And that's okay. That's when you got to ask a friend and you got to have some other people helping you out, right? And talking to you about it. So let's quickly answer this music, classical music in the modern world, real quick. And then I'm going to go so that I can get back to dinner and to the gig tonight. So, can you make a living as a classical composer in the modern world? I think, ironically enough, it is easier now than it was during the classical era to make a living as a classical composer. Because what is video game music? It's classical music. What is a lot of pop production? If you really pay attention, some of those, not all of them, but some, classical music. What is modern band music and modern educational music? Classical music. Uh, what is film? Classical music. Now, the tools have changed, right? You're going to spend a whole lot of time on your computer. Now, if you ask me as a classical musician, could you make a living in today's society? I would say it's a lot more dubious. But as a classical composer, the answer is absolutely. And it's easier than it ever has been. Now, am I saying that's easy then? No, the answer is no, it's not easy. If you think even back to the era of Mozart and Beethoven and Brahms, how many of those guys do you think actually were making a living? How many do you think had a part to full-time job on top of composing music to just make ends meet? The answer were a whole lot, even the famous ones that we think are amazing. Bach actually had 3 full-time jobs. Granted, they were mainly prestigious jobs, but 3 full-time jobs. So I would say what you really want to be thinking about instead of despairing about classical music is thinking about what are the things people aren't thinking about and how can I use technology to make my classical music that much more marketable. So, anyway, I hope you enjoyed this random chat. I may do more of these because they're a little bit easier to do than do improvs and whatever on the keyboard when I'm traveling. So, hope you enjoyed. I'll talk to you